Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most enduring legends in history, King Arthur. Was he a real king with a shining castle at Camelot, a magical sword, and a round table of noble knights? Or is he purely a figure of myth? Let's sift through the pages of history and find out. The story most of us know comes from medieval romance. We picture a majestic king, guided by the wizard Merlin, married to the beautiful Guinevere, and betrayed by his friend Lancelot. This is the Arthur of literature, a symbol of perfect kingship and chivalry. But when we look for this king in the historical records of the 5th or 6th century, the time he supposedly lived, we find almost nothing. There is no mention of a King Arthur in the contemporary accounts of the Saxon invasions of Britain. So, where did the story come from? The first major mention of a figure named Arthur appears around the 9th century in a work by a Welsh monk named Nennius. He describes Arthur not as a king, but as a dux bellorum, a commander of battles. Nennius lists 12 battles Arthur supposedly fought and won against the invading Saxons, culminating in the great victory at the Battle of Mount Badon. This is our first real clue. Arthur might not have been royalty, but a powerful Romano-British warlord, a leader who rallied the native Britons against the invaders after the Roman legions had left. Think about the time period. The Roman Empire had withdrawn from Britain, leaving a power vacuum. Various Germanic tribes, like the Angles and Saxons, were crossing the sea and settling in. It was a chaotic, violent era. It makes perfect sense that a strong military leader, a charismatic and successful commander, would become a figure of hope for the beleaguered Britons. His victories would have been legendary, and stories of his heroism would have been told and retold for generations. Over the centuries, these stories grew. Storytellers, poets, and writers added their own creative flourishes. In the 12th century, Geoffrey of Monmouth, History of the Kings of Britain, transformed this warrior figure into a grand king of an empire. It was Geoffrey who introduced many of the elements we know today, like the sword Caliburn, which later became Excalibur, and figures like Merlin. His work was a bestseller, spreading the legend of Arthur across Europe. Later, French Romance writers added the concepts of courtly love, the Holy Grail, Lancelot, and the Round Table. The Camelot we imagine, full of knights in shining plate armor, is more a reflection of the High Middle Ages than the so-called Dark Ages in which Arthur would have lived. His actual warriors would have been more like late Roman soldiers, fighting with spears and shields, not jousting in tournaments. So, was King Arthur real? It's possible. There was likely a real, historical figure, a brilliant British war leader who temporarily halted the Saxon advance. But the king in the shining armor, the ruler of Camelot, the wielder of a magical sword, that Arthur is a legend, a magnificent story built over 1,000 years. He represents the dream of a golden age of peace and justice, a hero created by a people who desperately needed one. The historical man may be lost to the mists of time, but the legend of the king lives on. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed this exploration, please hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into history and myth, and let me know in the comments who you'd like me to talk about next. See you in the next video.